Thank you very much, Anne. And I'm also really happy to be here. I'm a professor of environmental psychology at the University of Bath, but I also live in Bristol. So I think it's really exciting that Bristol residents have an opportunity to feed into decision making about how we tackle climate change. Next slide, please, Diane. So as you've already heard, climate change is affecting people and including us. So this time last year, you'll recognise images like the one here from the Australian bushfires. We're going to see more of those sorts of things. But as Anne's already described, we're going to also experience increasing impacts of climate change in Bristol and across the UK as well. Next slide, please. And as Anne has also mentioned, climate change doesn't affect all people equally. It has greater impacts on people who are actually poorest and most vulnerable. They tend to live in areas that are more at risk of flooding and extreme weather and can't tend to afford to protect themselves or to move away to safer areas. And so, like COVID, climate change is likely to worsen inequality. So increase the divide between the sort of have and have-nots. But linked to that as well, and this is what this figure shows, it's particularly unfair because richer countries and people with higher incomes tend to emit more carbon dioxide, more carbon emissions that cause climate change. So this figure shows that as household income increases, so as you move from left to right on the graph, that's showing income increasing. And what it's showing is that the energy footprint or the carbon footprint goes up, basically. So people who tend to have a higher income have a much bigger carbon footprint than people that have a lower income. So in other words, that the people that are more to blame for climate change, that emit more carbon, tend to be able to adapt better to it. So it's a sort of doubly unfair situation. And so that's why fairness is one of the key issues that we link to climate change. Next slide, please. Another aspect of fairness, though, is what we call intergenerational justice, or in other words, that climate change impacts are likely to be worse in the future when the world in which young people will be living and inheriting from us, and yet young people are not able to obviously take part as fully in decision making today as adults can. They can't vote, for example. And so this is why a lot of young people feel very concerned about climate change, and many of them are very angry as well, that they're understandably worried about a future that they will be inheriting, and that they don't feel that they're really able to control. So this is another reason why many people see climate change as an issue of fairness. Next slide, please. And more generally, climate change is something which will make us more vulnerable to other risks. So we sort of think also it's sort of called a threat multiplier. So think about people who have been flooded during the pandemic, for example, or homeless people during a heat wave. To have one of those problems would be bad enough, but to compound it with another one, it's immensely difficult to cope with. So climate change basically just sort of makes us less resilient, more vulnerable to other things. It makes the situation worse if we have other things to contend with. And as a society, the more we experience disrupted travel or power due to extreme weather, the less we're able to do our work, to get to school, to run hospitals and so on. And the impacts overseas as well will mean that we experience things like disruptions to food supplies, maybe increased food prices, migration of people from affected areas, and all of those sorts of things will affect us in different ways here. So our society and our economy will become more vulnerable unless we take significant action on climate change. Next slide, please. So, oh no, I think you've skipped one. Yeah. Oh yeah, it should be the graph one. Yeah. So why should we act now? From what you've heard, climate change may seem like a long-term issue, and indeed it is. The impacts are going to be worse in the future. But just because of that doesn't mean that we can delay action. The sooner that we take action, the less severe the impacts will be. So the less people's lives and well-being will be at risk. But also, the longer we delay, the more rapid and drastic the cut in emissions will need to be. So that's what this figure is trying to show, is that the longer that you wait into the future, so you can see it's time along the bottom, the longer that you wait, the steeper that curve is, the steeper the drop in emissions that we'll need to make. So it'll be a kind of radical sort of off the cliff drop. Whereas if we take action now, the changes we'll need to make, we can bring in sort of a little bit more gradually. It still need to make some rapid changes, but it means we can overcome any challenges to rolling out new technologies and policies. And it won't be so disruptive to our lives. So that's why people think it is a very urgent issue that we should be taking action as soon as possible. Next slide, please. And even if you think, well, that's fine, but I do have other things to worry about. We all do, things like money, health, maybe our family, etc. We've all got things that are really pressing, but actually many or even most of the things that we need to do to tackle climate change will actually improve our lives directly. So having an energy efficient home, for example, or saving energy at home, that can reduce our energy bills, so save us money. Walking and cycling, for example, can improve your health and well-being. And actually, we know that people that have sort of greener lifestyles tend to have higher well-being overall. And as we think about recovering from COVID, tackling climate change can also help the economy more widely. So it can create green jobs, like developing new green technologies, for example. Next slide, please. And really importantly, this is an issue which many people, most people in fact, in the UK agree that we need to take serious action to address. So most people in the UK are concerned about climate change and want action taken. And we found that this concern about climate change hasn't been dented by COVID-19, which we were quite surprised about. But in fact, people now see climate change as even more urgent than they did a year ago. And so that's the vast majority of people now saying it's a very urgent issue. And most people also support a green recovery from COVID. And final slide, please. And people in Bristol are actually particularly concerned about climate change. We've just heard that Bristol was the first city council to declare a climate emergency. And actually people in Bristol have really been at the forefront of calling for action to address environmental issues like climate change for many years. They've had consistently higher rates of concern about climate change than the rest of the country that's now catching up. And residents and communities are already taking action to reduce their carbon footprint, to get green energy, to work as communities to tackle climate change and call on leaders for more action. So in summary, climate change is a really urgent issue. It's a very serious issue. It's one that has fairness at its heart, but tackling it will also improve our well-being in general. And people are already starting to act. So I hope you can help shape the next steps that we take in Bristol to address it. Thanks very much.